Welcome to Lesson 8, Arrays and an Introduction to Exception Handling. This is the last lesson of our C# 2012 Fundamentals Part 1 videos, and in this lesson our key focus is going to be on the data structure called an array. An array is basically just a collection of items that have the same type and use the same name, and so we'll demonstrate lots of arrays, for example, of simple types like int, just so that we can demonstrate the concepts of arrays in C#. And one of the key concepts that we'll be talking about is iterating through all of the elements in an array. And we'll do that using the for each repetition statement, which provides a nice mechanism for guaranteeing that you touch every element within an array data structure. Of course, you can still use counter-controlled repetition as well, which we will also demonstrate, but one of the nice things about for each is that it eliminates the possibility of making a counting error as you touch all the elements in your program. Now, as part of one of the examples, we'll start to introduce a concept called exception handling. Arrays in C# are different from some of their C-based language counterparts in that they know their own size, and because they know their own size, if you try to access an element outside the bounds of an array, something called an exception will occur. An exception is a problem that happens at runtime, and if you write your code properly, you should never get outside the bounds of an array, but if you need to ensure that your program is not going to fail if that happens, then you can use this technique called exception handling to make your programs more robust. So we'll start to introduce that concept here, and when we get into part 2 of these live lessons videos, we have an entire lesson on exception handling capabilities where we go into this in much more detail. After exception handling, we'll take a look at a newer concept introduced a few years ago in C# called implicitly typed variables. C# has the ability to determine a variable's type based on how you initialize the variable in its declaration. And that turns out to be an extremely important concept when you get into language integrated query, or LINQ, which is the first lesson in the next part. So that is a fundamental concept that will be required for that next part of these videos. After that, we'll take a look at passing arrays to methods. And again, it's not that you don't know how to pass information into a method for processing. The main reason I'm covering this here is because of the differences in C# as compared to many other programming languages. So once again, you're definitely going to want to take a look at that particular video. After that, we have a presentation of so-called variable length argument lists. There are methods throughout the APIs that can often receive a variable number of arguments, and the corresponding method has a special type of parameter which basically takes the variable number of arguments and turns them into an array that gets passed into the method for processing. So we'll show you how to implement your own variable length argument list methods. And finally, we'll show you how to process the command line arguments that the system passes into your application as it gets up and running, and that occurs when your app's main method gets called. As you're working your way through this lesson, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to contact me. And generally, the best ways to reach me are through my email address, which you see on the screen, or through our company Facebook and Google Plus pages.